there's an amazing story that's taking place right now in DC. That's why. Yeah, there's an amazing story that's taking place right now in DC. Take a look at these awesome human beings. This group is called Embassy Protection Collective. They've been living in the Venezuelan embassy in DC for the past 2 weeks. This is coming to a head today. Abrams, the one that was convicted of lying to Congress, that's a war criminal, and I'm saying that in the literal sense of the word, has been put in charge of issues pertaining to Venezuela. And he has come out essentially saying that these people are criminals, or at the very least, these people are breaking the law. And of course, I should know because I did it amazingly well myself. But these people are breaking the law, and these people need to leave the embassy immediately. Now, their point is very basic and very straightforward. The United States has been putting sanctions on Venezuela and essentially attacking the country economically in order to bring about societal destabilization, to get their patsy in office. Once their patsy is in office, that treasonous patsy that has called himself president, interim president, would at that point give over the resources of Venezuela, essentially cede all notions of sovereignty of Venezuela. Now here's the catch. The people in Venezuela may have gripes with Maduro, but the people in Venezuela also have no interest in the United States taking over in this way, meaning fomenting a coup. The majority of the people in the country didn't even know who Guaido was when Guaido was calling himself interim president. Guaido had been working with the United States. If anything like this had been taking place, they would have been calling him treasonous and would have been looking for his head if that was in this country and if Russians were connected in any way. But in this way, we look at it's okay because Maduro is apparently a bad guy. I tell you what he is. He's the legitimate head of that government. And it is somewhat... Look, sanctions are an act of war. The United States putting sanctions in this way, for the most part, is essentially attacking another nation with blockades. This blockades is not just goods. This is also medicines, drugs, things that the public and the population itself uses. We have no justification at all to take down the government of another nation, let alone arbitrarily declare somebody else as head of the government and pretend as if the original government, the elected government, didn't exist. So this group of protesters is there to kind of make this point of we're not ceding this over to this new sham government that the United States, or this new puppet government that the United States is allowing into play. Let's go to, I'm going to go to, let's see, where is it? Right here. So this is Code Pink making themselves known to Abrams at one of the Atlantic Council meetings.
Dare you impose economic sanctions that harm the people of Venezuela?
Stalinist, get out!
You, in the name of the American people, overthrow the government of another people!
That is an amazing show of bravery. I mean, honestly, you're in the lion's den, literally. These people are lit. What she's saying here is, look, it is not for us to make a determination to turn over or to take down the government of another nation, especially when the repercussions of this could literally lead to civil war. And understand why it's leading to civil war. The United States is trying to get elements of the military to peel away from Maduro, the elected government of the country, to Guaido, their patsy. This is going to cause a bifurcation in the military, which is, at this point you have military fighting each other, all for something that the United States started in order to get rid of this government. Let's see, I want to go back to this part. This started long before Maduro was in power, by the way. This goes all the way back to Hugo Chavez. They tried, if you remember, to get Hugo Chavez out in a coup. That didn't work. The people were in the streets. Chavez was installed back into office immediately. But Maduro is not Chavez. And not Chavez. There were economic difficulties that allowed that country to be preyed upon in this way. Now, do not misunderstand me. Whatever those difficulties were, the United States is standing on their throat, not allowing to fix those difficulties. If this was any other nation, the nation would have gotten their financial affairs in order by now, but the sanctions have made that almost impossible. Just go for one last point. Sanctions are an act of war. Before the Iraq War, when Bush clumsily went into Iraq, Clinton was in office. Clinton left office with a 70% approval rating. That 70% approval rating, Bill Clinton also was responsible for 500,000 kids dying with the sanctions that he was passing against Saddam Hussein. The same thing's true here. There's research that's come out to give analysis to what has been the impact of the sanctions that the United States has put on Venezuela. So, right here. The authors also explain how the sanctions prevented economic recovery from the country's severe economic depression and hyperinflation. Venezuela's economic crisis routinely blamed all on Venezuela, said Jeffrey Sachs, co-author of the paper. But it is much more than that. American sanctions are deliberately aiming to wreck Venezuela's economy, thereby lead to regime change. It is a fruitless, heartless, illegal, and failed policy, causing grave harm to the Venezuelan people. That's a fair description of reality. An estimated more than 40,000 deaths from 2017 and 2018, 40,000 deaths in 1 year based on the sanctions that the United States has been passing. The August 2017 sanctions contributed to a sharp decline in oil production that caused great harm to the civilian population. The U.S. sanctions implemented since January, if they continue, will almost certainly result in tens of thousands of more avoidable deaths. This is based on an estimated 80,000 people with HIV who have not had antiretroviral treatment since 2017, 16,000 people who need dialysis, 16,000 people with cancer, 4 million with diabetes and hypertension, many of whom cannot obtain insulin or cardiovascular medication. Think of it from your standpoint. All of you know somebody who's ill in some way. Hell, you know me, I'm on dialysis. If I was in Venezuela, I would be dead in a month. The analysis that these guys are using is essentially based on, our sanctions have prevented them from getting medications, okay? Are these medications necessary for life? Yes. Will those people die if they don't get them? Yes. It's a numbers thing. I don't have to know Todd by name. I just know that Todd is going to bite it if he doesn't get treatment in a couple of weeks. Since the sanctions that began in January 2019, oil production has fallen by 431,000 barrels per day, or 36.4%. This will greatly accelerate the humanitarian crisis, but projected 67% decline in oil production for the year. If sanctions continue, will cause vastly more loss of human life. This includes money that we've stolen from them. This includes money that other nations have refused to give them back because of the United States or being patsies of the United States. This has had real world consequences. It's not just on the Maduro government, it is also affecting, over the top, the Venezuelan population. When you hear Abrams, Pompeo, Trump, and all of these people talk about, we care about the Venezuelan people, just be very clear that if they cared about the Venezuelan people, there's one thing that they can do to assist and help the Venezuelan people almost immediately. Keep your humanitarian aid. Get rid of the sanctions. They're killing people. Literally. Again. But again, after all, that was the point. I'll end this here, but the activists are there now. I want to give a shout out. You can see Code Pink at the bottom. Code Pink is always the stuff. These guys are there now. These guys are confronting, apparently, the United States government now, and apparently this is being handled by a Secret Service. And I would imagine in coordination with the local police. I'll leave this here. This one wasn't meant to be long. It was just kind of a heads up about what was going on. Thanks all.